Hello students, in today's tutorial we are going to consider compound propositions. We have discussed a compound proposition in our previous class, but this is also the extension from that one, and today especially we are focused on counter-positive and inverse propositions, tautology, and contradiction or fallacy. Contradiction or fallacy means problem in reasoning or defects in reasoning. Converse propositions. Please students, here you have to consider first what the term hypothesis, conclusion, and also conditional statements, and finally you have to also understand what means converse statements. First, hypothesis means assertion for something, just to reach your initial statement in order to just pose another statements. For example, if there is rain, then there will be a crop. So the proposition, if there is rain, is a hypothesis, and the proposition, then there will be a crop, is a conclusion. So conditional statement is a form of statement that is made from hypothesis and conclusion. In another term, conditional statements are also if-then statements. So as a converse statement again is a statement that is converted from these conditional statements. So, what is converse statement? The converse statement is mainly the proposition here, something that is exchanged, that's exchange of the place, that is reversed one. So the hypothesis and the conclusion will be reversed. Then here, merely the hypothesis and conclusions are reversed. There is no any another additional requirement. Given the conditional statement, P implies Q, or if P then Q, you can read like that. For example, if we are going to use the previous example, if there is rain, then there will be crop. Then the converse statement of this conditional proposition is given by inversing the position of the conclusion to the position of hypothesis, and that of hypothesis to the conclusion. Here, Q implies P. That means if there is crop, then there will be rain. So in a converse proposition, we simply exchange the conclusion and the hypothesis. In this case, the hypothesis of the conditional statement become the conclusion of the converse statement, and the conclusion of conditional statement become the hypothesis one. So converse statement of the conditional statement, in short, P implies Q is Q implies P. Another one is contra-positive propositions. Here also there is a conversion of hypotheses and conclusions of conditional statements and that of the contra-positive proposition. Contra means opposite one. So in case of contra, just there is negation added here. So the hypothesis, the contra-positive statement is negation of the conclusion, and the conclusion of the contra-positive statement is become the negation of the hypothesis of the conditional statement. Here, the position of the hypothesis and conclusions are reversed, like that of converse proposition. In addition to that, here is also negated. So, given the conditional statement P implies Q, then what is the contra-positive statements of this hypothetical statement? Then its contra-positive is negation Q implies negation P. Here, the position also just exchanged and they are negated. If we use our previous example, for conditional statement is if there is rain, then there is crop. So the contra-positive is if there is no crop, then there is no rain. Another related one is just inverse proposition. Inverse proposition, there is no any exchange between positions of hypothesis and conclusion. The conclusion and the propositions of the conditional statement is negated. For example, here, given the conditional statement P implies Q, that is, if there is rain, then there is cloud, then the inverse statement is negation P implies Q. That means if there is no rain, then there will not be crop. Some important thing that you are required to understand here is that what is then the relationship between the conditional statements and the contrapositive, its converse and its inverse. So you should have to, you should not forget this one. So if here this one is given for us, what is conditional statement is given for us here, then it is contrapositive is just the hypothesis and conclusion position exchanged at the same times this is negated. So are they equivalent? So conditional statement and contrapositive statements are equivalent? Yes, they are equivalent. You can refer this one from your second tutorial that you have learned. Please when you are talking about equivalency, we are not talking that the two things are identical, the two propositions are identical, but we are talking that their truth value is equivalent. Let's say, for example, the sky is blue. This statement is true. Cats are animal, and this statement is also true. These two propositions are equivalent. They have the same because truth value of the two proposition is true. They are not identical, but they are equivalent. And let's say example, another one, which indicates false. The sky is not blue. This statement is false. Cats are not animals. And again, these statements are not equivalent. That means they have not the same truth value. So these statements are equivalent. So you should not confuse between identicality and equivalence. When you are talking about equivalence, you are talking about the sameness or the equality of the truth value between the propositions. Here is what about the relationship between conditional statement and its inverse? So they are not equivalent. So P implies Q is not equivalent with Q implies P. So you should not forget this one. Again, you can also see in our second tutorial, you can cross-check. What about with its inverse relationship? So this is not, they are not also equivalent. That means they have no equal truth value. So conditional statement and its contrapositive are equivalent, but conditional statement and its inverse are not equivalent, and also the conditional statement and its inverses are not equivalent. So we should not forget this one. Let's see some written examples. If Kadis lives in Addis Ababa, that means if we indicate this one with P, then she lives in Ethiopia. This is the what we call conditional statement because it is the if-then statement. So any proposition that is constructed using if-then is a conditional statement, and it is also called implications. So P implies Q, P implies Q, P implies Q. Then what is the converse statements of this? Its converse statement is, we have said that in converse statement, the hypothesis and the conclusions just interchanged. Therefore, if Kadis lives in Ethiopia, then she lives in Addis Ababa. Simple exchangement. There is no any negation added here. What about with its contrapositive? In contrapositive, the hypothesis and the conclusions just exchanged, and also negation will be added. So what is the contrapositive of this proposition? It is if Kadis does not live in Ethiopia, he will become negative negated, then she does not live in Ethiopia. This statement is also negated. So negation Q implies negation P. What about its inverse? The inverse statements of this conditional statement. If Kadis does not live in Ethiopia, here there is no any exchange place, but it is negated here. Here it is negated. then she does not live in Ethiopia. That means negation P implies negation Q. You can write in such way, or you can practice in such way. Okay, tautology and contradiction. Another most important topic that is related with compound proposition is the concept of tautology and contradiction. So there is a difference between tautology and equivalence. When you are talking about equivalence, you are talking about the comparison between two propositions. We just proposition P, let's say, proposition P and proposition Q, and we see whether their truth value is equal or not. But in case of tautology, we simply talk about a single one. We talk about that with A means one, as you know from English learning. So a compound statement, that means one statement, is always true regardless of the truth values of its component proposition, then it is tautology. That means a compound proposition is made up of two or more propositions. But this proposition may have truth value, false or true. But finally, we are going to consider whether these compound statements that's formed with the propositions are true or not. If all propositions compound at the same time gives truth value true, then we say it is tautology. Otherwise, it is contradiction. That means there is a contradiction. There is a reasoning defect in the reasoning process. Let's see using example. For any proposition P and Q, show the compound proposition. This is tautology. Here we are given this compound proposition, which is made up of two propositions P and Q. So the truth value of P and Q may be true or false. What we are going to consider in order to make sure that whether this proposition is tautology or not is finally what is this combination. In order to determine the tautology, we have to just construct truth table as usual. So what is Q implies P? Here the truth value is given us. Here just we are going to consider this column. So because the proposition we are talking about is only for this one. That is, its all combinations are true regardless of the truth value of this proposition. As you can consider here, there are true, false elements here. There are true, false. We are not considering this one. We are going to be considering this combination one. Therefore, we can conclude that P implies Q, Q implies P is tautology. Okay, let's consider again this one. Here, contradiction or fallacy shows that this compound proposition is contradictory or fallacy. Here, how many propositions we have? P, Q, R. Here we have three propositions. Therefore, the possible alternative truth value here is 2 to the power of 3. That is 8. Therefore, as usual, as you have learned in tutorials second, here we are going to write the all possible propositions and compounds. So here we have to write P, Q, R and their corresponding negations, and also we have to write from here we move from simple to complex one, and finally we write this one here. Therefore we proceed to constructing this truth value as usual. True, then false. We are going to reduce this by 2, then true, false, true, false. Then for R we are going to write here by reducing by 1, true, false. So now it is easy to construct for their corresponding negation. So negation of P is here false, true. Here negation of Q here is again false, false, true, true, false, false, true, true. Then here we are going to write what is negation P and Q. Then and also we constructed Q and R here, Q and R, and negation Q. We get here all elements are false. We are going to make sure that this element is false in order to make that this compound is contradictory. So let's construct here. It's very clear that because all these elements are false, based on the rule of conjunction, true and false is always false. Everything here is conjuncted with this one is false. So here we can write that every element is false. So because this element is all false, we can conclude that the proposition this is contradictory, or there is a problem in the reasoning. Students, thank you for watching this video. Please pause and make sure that you have subscribed in this video and you liked it and share. So like it and share it for your friends, and nice to meet you in the next video.